Some people might say football is back. Football is not back until week 1 of the regular season, but training camp is almost here. And going into it, the Broncos have some really important injury news that I'm excited to share because we got some good news, we got some bad news, unfortunately, but a lot of good news all together. So we're going to break it all down as training camp kicks off tomorrow, which, by the way, the alternate helmets will be announced tomorrow, the team said today. So tune into tomorrow's show to get a peek at those new alternate helmets. But James Palmer tweeted out a few days ago, Broncos running back Javonte Williams will not start training camp on PUP, I'm told. It had been pointing in that direction all offseason, and the team officially has decided he won't start on PUP. A great sign for his chances week 1. So very positive news, very encouraging stuff right here, that all signs appear to be that Javonte Williams is a good-to-go player when we get started for training camp in the preseason. Like I said, Broncos not placing their former top pick running back on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list to start training camp. Now, we don't need to rehash it too much, but we all remember the very dramatic injury he suffered against the Raiders last season, October 2nd, 2022, when it was not just a casual, if there is ever one, ACL tear. It was all sorts of knee ligaments, and it required a very extensive rehab and surgery. This was not your routine recovery from an ACL. So to see him back 326 days from that injury is truly an incredible recovery, an incredible story. I'm not quite sure if it merits a medical miracle, but as far as sports injury returns go, this is in a very low percentile of someone who has bounced back and at least appears to be bouncing back this quickly for what he sustained last October. Now, I have talked about this at length throughout the offseason. I'm not quite officially, I know this sounds extremely rain cloudy here, sold on Williams being 100% just yet. I really just need to see it with my own eyes before I can officially stamp him as Javonte Williams is back, because there have been players who have suffered very serious injuries like this before, and we think they're back, and then they're not quite back, right? For Denver, they experienced this last year with KJ Hamler. Hamler was back, and then it was, he's not actually quite back. We kind of rushed him back too soon. So that's where some hesitancy for me comes in. But specifically at the running back position, where you have to make so many cuts and whatnot, and that puts a lot of wear and tear on your knees, J.K. Dobbins went through something similar where he suffered a very serious knee injury with multiple torn ligaments, just like Javonte Williams, in August of 2021, and he did not come back until September 25th of 2022. So he took 13-ish months to come back, whereas Williams is trying to come back in 10 to 11 months-ish. But even when J.K. Dobbins came back, less than a month later, he had to get a second knee surgery because of too much scar tissue. So this is where I say, I'm going to pump the brakes just a little bit until I officially anoint him as Javonte Williams, 100% back. He's ready to roll. We've got our sweet prince back. But let's show the guy some love. I mean, let's let him know that Broncos country is pulling for him, is supporting him, has his back when it comes to this very serious knee injury he sustained and the long recovery he has endured as a result. Spam is number 33 in the comment section. If you've never commented on a video before, this feels like a pretty good one to pop your cherry for, because I can't get around this guy enough, because this has been an incredible recovery story. Now, when it comes to history, because I am a student of history, my girlfriend was, I know, self-brag, out of town the last week, so I binged all sorts of World War II shows and documentaries. It's not really on Javonte Williams' side. There are some good examples of players coming back from very serious knee injuries and having very successful seasons, but like J.K. Dobbins and others, there are a lot of players who have come back from these serious knee injuries and have not been pristine that first year back, right? Saquon Barkley is an example, but J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, two Ravens players, coincidentally, that tore their ACL, LCL, and PLC, also came back from very serious injuries to not really be 100% that first season back. Dobbins in that first year back, 520 yards, was limited to 8 games. Gus Edwards, 433 yards in 9 games and 3 touchdowns. Good average for sure, but again, not what they probably would have hoped for in that first year back, at least from a fan's perspective. Carson Wentz is another example. Remember, he had that very bad knee injury when the Eagles were rocking and rolling, and he came back and was not bad, better than recent Carson Wentz, but still not great. 3,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Those are very, pedestrian numbers, maybe even above average, if you will, for some quarterbacks, but not what Eagles fans were maybe hoping for their former MVP candidate at one time. But there are some good examples of players coming back from serious knee injuries. Adrian Peterson came back from his ACL tear to rush for 2,000 yards and win the NFL MVP award. That's what makes AP so different. That's what makes him all day. Jamal Charles, a guy we are all too familiar with, came back from his injury, put up 1,500 yards and averaged over 5 yards a pop and scored 5 touchdowns in 16 games. The two numbers right there on screen that jump out to me the most isn't so much the yards or the carries, it's the games played, right? Dobbins, like we just talked about, came back too soon. Hamler came back too soon. These two guys show that you can come back and you can be ready for a full season workload. The good news, or even the great news, if you will, for Javonte Williams is that he is coming back in July, right? He's got a lot of time. He's got a long runway to get himself ready for September, that first week against the Raiders. So at least he's coming back this early in the game, whereas if he came back towards the end of August, he might need an extra month to really tune up and get up to NFL speed. He's got all of training camp and all of the preseason to do that. So that's definitely something that is benefiting Javonte Williams coming back and looking maybe more like Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles than, say, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Now, when it comes to training camp, we are the mecca for it. We are your home. So if you have not subscribed and you have no idea what's going on over at training camp for the next 6 weeks, keep it right here. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep you guys up to speed on all the latest news and rumors, along with injury news. And we have some more injury news to get to on today's show. Baron Browning and Kendall Hinton are starting off on the PUP list. Kendall Hinton underwent a minor knee surgery just to clean things up. Baron Browning, as we know, suffered a knee injury and had to get surgery this offseason. In fact, that was almost a direct correlation to the team signing Frank Clark, which really tipped their hand as to when they expect Baron Browning to return. Mike Purcell also went in undisclosed surgery this offseason, and KJ Hamler tore his pec working out in March. Those two guys land on the non-football injury list. But I want to share a little bit of this Mike Klis article with you guys on Baron Browning, where he said, according to sources, Browning was finishing a stretch during the conditioning phase of the Broncos offseason workouts when he felt discomfort in his knee. Tests revealed a partially torn meniscus that required surgery. Browning, who was slated to start, is expected to miss the first month or two of the regular season. So this has unfortunately started to snowball from Baron Browning is likely going to start on the PUP to Baron Browning is probably going to miss some time in training camp to missing a good chunk of the preseason to not just the start of the regular season, not just bleeding into the first week or two, but bleeding into the first month or two. It may be missing 5 to 8 games, right? If he misses 2 months of football, that's 8 games right there. If he misses a month to a month and a half, we're talking 4 to 6 games. So that's a good chunk of the 2023 pie, and that's a bummer because Browning made a huge adjustment from inside linebacker to outside linebacker, and I thought he really flourished in that new role last year under Evero, and I was really excited to see what he could bring to the table this year. And as for this team's sake, they really needed Baron Browning this season. They still do because this is a committee approach at edge rusher. There's no true alpha dog. I want that to be Randy Gregory, but I'm going to wait to be proven wrong, and I've never seen Randy Gregory play a full season. So until we get to that point, you're going to need a lot of guys chipping in, and Baron Browning was one of those guys. Now, some more good injury news to share. A couple of notable names not on the PUP list. Aaron Patrick, if you recall, suffered a torn ACL last year. Great special teamer. Very good to see him. What appears to be close enough to 100% to avoid the physically unable to perform list. The safety that Denver just drafted, J.L. Skinner, he suffered an injury while training for the Combine. He ultimately fell to the 5th round because of that. Teams might up regretting that because he appears to be all signs green, ready to go. He's not on the PUP list either. And then Tim Patrick, who suffered a torn ACL in training camp last year, appears to be ready to roll as well for the first week of training camp. So we got some good news and we got some bad news when it comes to Denver's injury status going into day one of training camp tomorrow, Tuesday from Dove Valley. Now, some hot takes to wrap up today's show. It is a very toasty day up in Denver. High of 98 degrees. Stay inside. So if it's a high of 98, it's a first take hot take, and it's got to be extra hot. I have the weakest palate in the entire Chat Sports office when it comes to spice. Hand up. Everyone knows it. So my first take hot take, and I might not even believe it myself, but I'll toss it out into the universe for good vibes. Javonte Williams leads the AFC West in rushing yards in 2023. Let's just go through the other three AFC West running backs. Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon. I don't see either of those guys getting over 800 yards. They're going to split too much, and Mahomes is going to be top 3 in pass attempts, so rule them out. Chargers, Austin Eckler, fun fact, has never rushed for 1,000 yards. He gets a lot of his damage done through the air, but if he's only going to be a 900-yard rusher, something Javonte Williams did in year 1, I don't see why 33 can't pass him this year. And then as for the reigning NFL rushing leader, Josh Jacobs, well, he's not even in the Sin City right now. He was spotted at Vegas' airport on a outbound plane right before training camp gets underway. So something tells me Josh Jacobs might not be going into a great headspace, either the team as well, into this season. So, yeah, give me Javonte Williams on an ultimate redemption tour. Maybe even tosses him into that comeback player of the year mix. It's a hot take for someone coming off a very serious injury last year, but he's in a good division to come out as the king of the rushing leader. If you made it to the end of the video, I want to know. Type DEN in the comment section. This is just a good way so that I can get a good pulse and a good head count of everyone who watches all the way through, and I can identify where my MVPs, where the real ones are here. So type DEN. It'll be our little secret in the comment section below if you made it all the way to the end of the show.